3 days ago, I made a video talking about Nintendo being an evil, soulless corporation, as well as out of touch, archaic, and just downright goofy for the way that they treat online content creators like criminals. Most recently, they issued 2 strikes to a YouTuber named PointCrow because he made videos on Breath of the Wild that featured modded content. And in the eyes of Nintendo, that is a sin more unforgivable than murder. So they threw the book at him. They were coming with the meat. They tried to give him the business. They issued 2 strikes, and it wasn't just modded content they targeted, by the way. They also just targeted other videos as well on other games. A lot of it did feature mods, but some of them were just vanilla gameplay videos that they absolutely had a conniption over. Nintendo for a long time has historically shown that they hate their fans and absolutely despise when people play their games or enjoy their games in ways that they didn't plan for or in ways that they don't approve of. So for PointCrow showing mods and having fun making content around mods, they, started screaming bah humbug and shaking their fist at the clouds and then hired their legal team of assassins to do as much damage to him as possible. And if it was up to Nintendo, they probably would have publicly hung PointCrow to make an example out of him for daring to play their games in a way they didn't intend for people to play them. Would have had him face the fucking firing squad. The reason I'm even mentioning all of this before talking about today's story is because it's only been 3 days and Nintendo has already upped the ante on how evil they can be and how unbelievably cruel they are. Like they made, I made a claim in that video that they don't listen to the community, they don't care about, negative reputation that they have or community backlash. They don't listen to it. They just kind of brush it off like it's just, little squeaking dog toys that they can just ignore. They don't care what the people are saying. They're not listening. But now I'm almost convinced they must have heard what the community was saying about how evil they were and said, oh, you think that's bad? Well, watch this. And then they went even harder into degeneracy. So, what they've done, or what was revealed to the public today, is that they have completely ruined a man's life. And I'm not exaggerating. They are putting a man in debt to them for the rest of his life. There's a guy named Gary Bowser, and I'm not making this up. This isn't an alias. His name is fucking Gary Bowser. This sounds like fanfic. This sounds like the plot to the new Mario Bros. Movie. Like, it actually sounds made up, but it's real. Gary Bowser was working with a company called Team Executor. They were a hacking group that would hack consoles for profit, and one of their biggest products was for Switch. They would basically jailbreak the Switch and they'd sell it and make money off it, and Gary Bowser was one of the prominent members of this team, allegedly. And a couple of years ago, he got caught, and he served 40 months in jail. His time in jail is coming to a conclusion now, and he's about to be released, but he's not off the hook yet. In fact, he's on to an even deeper hook. One that is going to be a life of servitude to Nintendo, because they are coming after him for an additional $10 million plus that he will have to pay back over the course of the rest of his life. He is going to have to forfeit 25 to 30% of his income every single month to Nintendo until he can pay off his $10 million plus debt to them, because he was part of that hacking group. That is a legitimate, life-ruining obligation that he will have to fulfill. Now, I want to make it clear, Gary Bowser is not a hero. He is not a saint. He was part of a group that was knowingly breaking the law for profit. He wasn't doing anything, just. He wasn't some, holy figure, breaking the rules for the benefit of everyone. They were very much in it just to make money off of all of this. He knew it was wrong, and what he's done is illegal. But I would argue spending 40 months in jail is punishment that fits the crime. I don't think they needed to add on an additional fucking generational debt that he and his grandkids wouldn't even be able to pay. Now, of course, his family's not going to be obligated to pick up the tab on the $10 million plus that he owes when he dies. But you get the point. The amount of money that Nintendo is forcing him to pay back over the course of his lifetime is one that could never be fulfilled by him and his kids working and his grandkids working and maybe even his great-grandkids working. It is an absurd punishment. Once again, I understand what he did was wrong and he's not a good guy, but this is just beyond excessive. Nintendo is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's now face-fucking one random average guy in particular forcing him to pay back a debt that he will never be able to repay. That $10 or $14 million means absolutely nothing to Nintendo. They wiped their ass with that amount of cash. Meanwhile, that means that Gary Bowser will never be able to live a normal life. He's going to be constantly paying this back forever. He's going to die with negative $10 million to his name. Like, he won't even be able to afford a coffin to be buried in. Like, it's just so far into the realm of lunacy here. And I actually imagine Nintendo celebrating this victory with handshakes all around and then laughing at the misery of Gary Bowser, who now has to send 25 to 30% of his income to this company every single month. Where once again, I imagine once they receive those checks, they throw it right in the trash can and forget about it because that amount of money is completely meaningless to them. Anyway, the situation is wild, but this is kind of the story, like the general overview of it. I went over it more on stream, so I'll just play some clips of that. You honestly couldn't have scripted a better story, but it's real. And he had been sentenced to jail. Nintendo actually pursued action against him. He had made, I think, like $300K from all of his, like, hacking. And he spent 40 months in jail, and he just got released. And now he's going to have to pay 25 to 30% of his income every single month to Nintendo for the rest of his life. And he will still not be able to ever pay that off. So long, Gary Bowser. Pretty sure chat made that joke when we talked about him 2 years ago, too. Which is still a fire joke, by the way. So he's paid $175 of his $10 million plus debt. So he's chipping away at it. He's making progress, ever so slightly. They wanted to send a message to other Switch hackers. It was a very significant moment for us. It's the purchase of video games that sustain Nintendo and the Nintendo ecosystem, and it is the games that make the people smile. It's for that reason that we do all we can to prevent games on Nintendo systems from being stolen. Heroes. You guys are such fucking noble saints. Thank you, Nintendo. Ensure that this man will never live his life without the fear of Nintendo down his neck. And then also, while you're at it, why not strike a few more YouTubers who make videos on your games? You guys love to make people smile. The company just got a fine. They didn't, like, lock up and throw in the slammer every single person there. Meanwhile, Gary Bowser, he got the book thrown at him. He got the wood. It must have been something personal because his last name is literally Bowser. I have no doubt Gary Bowser got into hacking the Switch specifically because his last name's Bowser, so he's like, fuck it, I'll do it. Might as well. I'll fulfill my namesake. 100%. Successfully argued that Bowser and Team Executor had caused Nintendo to suffer $65 million in losses due to console hacking software and devices used to play pirated Nintendo Switch games. I don't recall that. 65 million from the console hacking software? I gotta be honest with you, Chief, that seems like a bunch of baloney. I don't know why the number 300K keeps popping into my head. Maybe that's what Gary Bowser personally stood to gain, or personally gained from all of this. Or maybe I'm just way off the mark, but I really thought, or I vividly remember, like a report saying he had made like 300K from it all. But who knows? That could be wrong. So, okay, so that is what he made for himself. He himself made 300K. I saw someone on Twitter say that they would honestly fake their own death in this case. Dude needs a new dust filter for his Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro Model 60. Fucking true. He's gonna need a Hoover Max ASAP. Does he even have a job? Well, he's just now getting out of prison after spending 40 months there. And he had a job in prison where he paid off $75 of his debt. So I would wager a guess he doesn't currently have a job. He's probably still hunting for one.